Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, how the heck are you? We are screaming into May right now. How's the weather where you're at? Not that interested in weather, but I am always curious to know what the weather is where y'all are at. Today's episode with Jen is kind of a mix. Part of what we talk about is when those wounded parts come up, when we get dysregulated, whether it's physically or emotionally, how do we manage it? What are some of the things that we tell ourselves? Do we have expectations? And sometimes we go into this story of like, I thought I worked on all this stuff and how come it's coming up again? And we talk about how you can look at that and how you can honor yourself instead of kind of self-harm by othering, self-othering, feeling like we don't fit in, what's wrong with us. We talk about internal family systems and parts and getting triggered. I don't know. I think it's a very relatable episode. I think you're going to enjoy it. And it's okay if you don't. All right, I think that's all I have. And now, on to the show. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Patricia.
Tell me what's going on with you.
Blah. I'm having a blah moment. I'm cranky, Patricia. I can't stand myself when I'm cranky. I'm just like, yeah. I think it's a beautiful spring day here and I want to be outside and I want to play hooky and I want to go do stuff. And instead I'm like, I don't know. I'm just feeling blah, like everything. I don't like anything. I'm like, it's really grumpy.
I'm sorry to hear that. You're not feeling well either, are you?
No, it's funny. I got like a little dizzy, I mean, it's all good, but I had a bunch of nights where I didn't sleep very well, and both of my kids were on spring break recently. You know, I moved recently, and I kind of did that. The house is functional now, and then I took a break, and now it's that dangerous time of like, maybe the stuff will never get unpacked ever, but I need it to.
Yeah,
my body feels uncomfortable. It's funny, sometimes this grumpiness can get really contagious to everything. So then it's like, I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I sound. I don't like the way I'm thinking of things. I'm just like, I just want to go take a nap.
I hear you. Yeah,
it's funny because there's lots of good stuff going on too in my life. But it's like I have the shirt-colored glasses on for the moment.
I hear you. I'm sorry that's going on.
How about you?
Here you are.
Here I am. I'm showing up grumpy.
I've been having a lot of dysregulation, sound dysregulation, feelings dysregulation. And before we hit record, I was a little tearful that I'm just having to use so many of my cognitive tools to remind myself that I'm okay, that I'm tired. I'm tired of it. And I want to share something, but I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but there's no way to tell this story without, I guess I could say this. So I get motion sickness pretty easily, car, water. I just do. Sometimes it affects me, sometimes it doesn't. And when it does affect me, I have to be really mindful about how I'm feeling and if I'm in a place where I need to pull over or turn around or what I need to do so it doesn't get really bad. And so this morning I was feeling some motion sickness. And at the end of the trip, I had said to somebody, I had shared that I have to be very hypervigilant when that happens. And their response was, just get out of your head and enjoy what's going on in the moment. And I understand that this person did not mean to be unkind or insensitive or anything like that. But I think with everything that's been going on recently, I think what it is, and I'm feeling tearful, is it's just one more experience of how I feel very othered in certain groups. And I've really been doing a lot of reflection. I'm pretty sure I'm autistic. And I'm really doing a lot of educating myself and looking at my life and seeing how often I feel othered. And this was just feeling very othered. And I didn't say anything, but what I wanted to say is, so you'll take note of how I'm doing in my body, and then you will be the one to decide when we need to pull over or roll the window down or turn around. Like, you'll be the one to do that, right? And I know that they didn't mean anything by it, but I'm just starting to see how when I'm in groups that are my groups and my people, I feel pretty comfortable. And when I'm in groups that are not my people, I really am looking to see what's the social cue. And what came up for me today is like, not going to share any of my personal concerns or fears when they come up, because they're just not met with the compassion that I need. And I can choose to share them or not, but really being aware of where I fit and where I don't. And it's feeling a little hard right now. I'll get through it, and I'm really capable of going through this. And it's just taken a lot of energy.
It sure does. I mean, that's like somewhat in the nature of being othered, right?
Yeah.
Actually, as I'm listening to you, I don't know. Here, how's this for like a take or a reframe on things, right? I'm hearing like the wisdom of your response. This like, so you'll clue into this stuff. And I don't know, I'm not sure how to articulate it, but that disempowerment of get with whatever mainstream normative program is so disempowering. You know, there's something that they go hand in hand, right? Being othered and then feeling like you're disempowered, right? Like this person's now going to tell you. And then I'm also thinking of like what you're needing in that moment. And of course, if we're stuck in a situation where the people around us can't do it, how can we do it ourselves? Right? And that honoring, being othered versus being honored. Right?
Yeah.
And you did that the day before, or the day you went paddling, and you were like, I'm going to cut this one short a bit. And you really listened to yourself.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting. Yeah, there was so much wisdom in your response.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel like this week has really been about having to take care of myself or not take care of myself and seeing what the fallout is. There was a birthday party there's a group of women that I belong to, and we went to this, usually a sleepy little restaurant, but because of the San Diego State Aztecs game, it's a sports bar. And when we got there was a line to get in, which there never is. There were 10 of us, and there was music playing and there was a game playing, and you had to scream just to hear the person next to you. And I used to keep earplugs in my purse, and I stopped. And I'll tell you what I did after. I stayed for 2 hours, and it was just way too much for me. And even as I walked home, before I even got to my house, I could hear my husband was vacuuming. And I just felt like, no more noise. So I came and he turned it off, and I went to the back bedroom till he was done. But this was about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I ended up coming and laying down until like 9 o'clock at night. I slept part of that time. Like my nervous system, it felt like somebody took my nervous system and just put it in one of those cans that they use at Home Depot to shake the paint up with.
Oh, yes. That's apt.
I mean, it was, I'm like, what am I going to do? Go to my bed all the time? And the next day I was taking a friend. The nice thing is we went to this beautiful meditation garden in Encinitas, and that was beautiful. We had lunch outside at this little restaurant, but even the people sitting at the tables to the sides of us just felt like it was too loud and too much, that my nervous system physically got so dysregulated. So I did get some Loops Engage Plus earplugs, and they came the following day, and Steve and I went to the exchange, and you can still hear conversation, and it blocked out some of the background noise. Then when I went to Aquafit yesterday, I put earplugs in because the music is great, but it's really loud. And I know that with my nervous system being so jangled right now. So, and like you said, I paddled on Monday with my friend Annie, and there were lots of winds, and we were in the bay, but there was a pretty strong side wind, and she wanted to do a longer paddle. And I just felt unstable in my boat. I just didn't feel comfortable. And normally with strong headwinds, I love it, but the side winds just didn't make me feel comfortable. And I said, I think I'm done. So we did 4 miles. The week has really been about figuring out, what do I need? How do I honor myself? Oh, and on Sunday when I came home, again, I came home and lay down. I took a nap and was in bed for a while, just trying to get my nervous system regulated. So I've been really good about honoring myself this week. And it's been a lot, and it's challenging, and I just tired. I kind of want to go on autopilot, and for the things that are going on in my life, things are taking up a lot of space in my head, and I'm having to really do active, kind of like with the thing that I was sharing this morning of, this is what works for me. This is what I need to do. That wasn't what was really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Aw.
Yeah.
Hmm.
This stuff goes on for people all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does. Well, I just love the way that you're really honoring it and you're not compounding your difficulty by like othering yourself. And when I say othering yourself, that's like putting demands on yourself that you should be some other way other than you are.
Yeah.
And that's so important because we do get dysregulated.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, I mean, I get dysregulated. Actually, right now, right? A lot of my dysregulation, I might use paint spinner instead of the word dysregulation from now on. Part of the reason why I paint spinner was like good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was, staying up late and having fun, but it's dysregulating. And if I can honor that and what do I need instead of despair, and knowing when to rest is not quitting.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example of really like how to do it. And how to do it, like what am I talking about? How to take care of yourself as an HSP. And just because it's hard doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Like,
Right.
This is the work,
Right.
right? Honoring yourself, asking yourself what you need. My heart rate will go up.
Mm-hmm.
And, taking the space to just kind of calm. Because dysregulation, we should talk about dysregulation or paint spinning, paint spinner. Because it happens on so many, it happens physically, it can happen emotionally. I think sometimes when people try to carry too much,
Mm-hmm.
this is why present moment focus can be so valuable, because how often do we not just, we're not just carrying the present moment and trying to deal with it, but we tell ourselves all of our stories from the past
Mm-hmm.
of how we felt this way. Or so, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to be dysregulated.
Well, and I think that what happens is oftentimes with dysregulation, depending on the type it is, that the stories that we go into were when we were younger and we were not safe and we were not able to take care of ourselves. And we have that fear that comes up that it's the same thing. And so much of what I've been going through is I'm okay. I'm not a child anymore. I have resources. I have support. People love me. People care. And not going into that narrative. And I think that when we have big feelings, especially if some of the dysregulation can be around attachment injuries, I think it's so easy to create those stories about feeling alone or mistrustful. And that's not really what's going on. And reminding ourselves that we have choices today and we have control and we have power over who we spend time with and how much time we spend with them. And that we can be here and take care of ourselves and to meet our needs. But often because I think those younger experiences don't get fully processed, that young part comes up and we kind of have a hard time separating it out.
Yeah. Yeah. In IFS language, right? If you're really blended with that part and you don't have any perspective and you haven't done the work to develop these inner relationships, you feel all that part's feelings, think all that part's thoughts, and it's like you lose all the other perspectives, including your more grown-up perspectives.
Right. So I'm going to give you a specific example because I need things to be tangible. I don't know, one day this week I had aqua fitness and it's hard. Transitions are just really hard for me. I know I love being there. I love how I feel when I'm done. And sometimes the transition of being at home and getting dressed in the morning to go is difficult for me. And I went. And I got there and my expectation was, because a lot of my friends are there, that I would connect with a certain friend and we'd talk and that would make me feel regulated and I'd get a good workout. And I got there and told her that I had a hard time going. And she kind of misconstrued that, thinking I didn't want to be there and that I wanted to leave. So she kept telling me, like, you can go if you want to. And then at halfway mark, she's like, you've been here 30 minutes. That's really great. And I felt misunderstood because it just was hard for me to get from here to there. And then my expectation is that we would visit. And she ended up talking with another friend. And this is what kicked up the attachment injury for me. So I want to be very clear that she didn't do anything wrong, but I had this unconscious expectation that she and I would talk and that would make me feel connected. And so the injured part of me came up, like I got jealous and I got angry and what about me? And I went really wanting that connection and then not getting it. And then I felt kind of walled off, like, screw you. And I don't want to talk to you and I don't need anybody. And then I had the awareness to tune in and ask that younger part of what was it that she was needing. And she just wanted to tell me about all the things that are going on right now. And she just kind of needed, you know, how little kids kind of chatter about, and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I saw this, and then so-and-so, you're like, she just needed to do that. So I really allowed her that space to talk and ask what she needed. And I had to remind myself that my friend didn't betray me. I didn't lose the relationship, that she has a right to talk to anybody that she wants. I could go and try and engage in the conversation too. What did I need from myself? How could I show up for that younger part? How could I still stay open? Because there was that part of me that's like, screw you. You know, I came here needing you and you weren't here for me. And managing all of those feelings and reminding myself that my friend loves me. And if she knew that I needed something, she would totally be here for me. But that takes a lot of conscious work. It takes a lot of conscious work to do that. And we're the ones that need to do that work. If we want to do the healing and the repair work, when this kind of stuff comes up, we need to use mindfulness and use whatever tools work for us. This is what works for me. This may not work for everybody, but it takes a lot of energy. And that's kind of the theme of what's been going on this week, where I've had to do a lot of that and a lot of relationships, in addition to having this dysregulation with sound and then this thing this morning. And sometimes it's just what it takes. And it's not always going to be this way. And I will go back into a place where things are a little bit more easy and I don't have to be so conscientious so frequently about it. And we need to talk about this stuff, because when I shared some of this stuff in the HSP group on Monday, I got feedback that people love hearing about this stuff because nobody talks about it. And then people think that there's something wrong with them and how come they struggle. And I think there's this expectation that if we know enough about ourselves, we won't get triggered. We should be living peaceful, happy, blissful lives. Like, sometimes this is just how it is. And I had a beautiful paddle this morning. I got out on Monday. I've been paddling a lot. And there are wonderful things that are going on and some things that are feeling a little hard.
Yeah. And you're not doing it wrong. Like, that's welcome to human life on planet Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think, I mean, you nailed it, that expectation that we should do it once, or if we've done our work, then somehow it's that if only, right? That then we won't have these struggles. Then we won't ever be bewildered or confused or hurt or... I mean, it's just not true. In a lot of ways, that's how we're like othering ourselves, right? Instead of being with what is, we're being with what we think is supposed to be.
Right.
It's a really beautiful example, Patricia. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Those inner relationships are so important. And I know it does require time and space.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we don't have time or space. We don't, I don't know. I'm thinking of all kinds of words: demand, assert, make sure of, protect. I know a lot of times those inner relationships can come out. I mean, there are specific meditations that you can do. I know for me, journaling can really, that's a place for some of that to come out. It's funny, as you were talking, I was thinking about this person, and if her misunderstanding was that you didn't want to be there, and she kind of almost sounds like she expected you to take off, right? To leave.
I think she was giving me permission to if I didn't want to stay.
Right. And there were probably lots of situations where that would have been beautiful and just the thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, of course, we don't read each other's minds. And what I was thinking of is it may have made it less likely for her to come over and engage you, thinking that you probably wanted to leave.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And and that young part, you know, don't we all have those young parts? And, you know, this is where I like to go to, like, adulthood's a myth, right? And why aren't we sharing this information? What the feedback you've been given about the podcast, where we just hit record and start talking, is that it's relatable and it's not to be found in many other places.
Yeah.
Although I think that's changing. And I'm super inspired by anybody that's brave enough to just be real.
Yeah. I think people are craving authenticity. The other thing that can happen is when those injuries come up, like when I was in the pool, I could have gone to like, oh, how come I'm having to deal with this stuff again? And for me, my belief is there's more healing that needs to be done. That when I'm done with all the healing, then it's not going to be a trigger for me anymore. And did it make me leave the pool? Did it make me stop working out? No, I think I did a really beautiful job of working with what was going on in the moment and not being a grass hat to anybody and working through my stuff. And so when this comes up for you, the listener, what is it that you tell yourself? Because it just means that there's more healing that needs to be done. It's just more work. I was working with a client yesterday that did all of this healing around this certain subject. And now it's like new level of Mario Brothers. Like now she's on a new level. She's like, I don't want to be on a new level. I already dealt with this. It's like, I hear you. And there's a new twist to it. And so it's bringing up some new things. Like that's just the nature of being alive. And what do we tell ourselves when this stuff comes up?
Yeah, I was talking to someone once who was really trying to reframe that as almost like how did she say it? Like, oh, goody. Here it is. Like here it's arising and my attitude towards it matters. Jeff Foster, who I really love a lot, has a video. Maybe I can share it and we can put it in the show notes. And it's pretty foundational, right? This attitude towards triggers and getting upset, getting dysregulated, having something call to us for attention. And it does recur. Like I talk about that in therapy all the time because someone will be like, this thing, it happened. I was 20. I went to therapy. I resolved it. Now suddenly, I'm 40 and here it is again. I'm like, well, you've got different sensibilities. You've hit a tripwire higher up the mountain of your journey. And there's nothing wrong here with that. But this foundational attitude towards the trigger, back to Jeff Foster, this video that I'll share, he talks about them and it is very much like IFS, internal family systems, in that he speaks of it in terms of parts, right? So it's like all of your emotions, all of your triggers are children, right? And they come knocking on the door, right? That's getting our attention. And we turn towards them and we're like, oh, it's you again. And imagining that there's this sad child knocking on your door and you're like, I'm so disappointed. What are you doing here again? Like get lost. And if you think about it, that is our attitude towards a lot of our triggers a lot of the time. And he says it so beautifully. And I'm having a gremlin that like, you're really doing such a whatever. It's beautiful. And hi, gremlin. It is worth watching the, 8 or 9 minutes. I really love him. But the difference, the point that he's trying to make is when that comes knocking on the door, like you're their home. It's you. It's your life. It's your experience. They're knocking. And there's so much, he says it, he calls it out. He's like, there's so much violence in the, oh, you again? You're here? And he's like, that is not the voice of the heart. The heart says, oh, you're here. Come here. This is a part of our journey. Let me understand you. You're getting triggered or something, right? You make sense. And we don't have to know what it is in order to make sense to ourselves. In fact, having that dissertation about your life and making sense while it's intellectually satisfying isn't really where healing's at. Healing's at that somatic, heartful, you're here. It's in the holding with compassion and that this acceptance that this is human, right? This is us in our journey. And that, again, we're back to that word honoring instead of othering, right? So ultimately that your sadness knocks on the door and you're like, you get out of here, right? That's othering. That's self-othering instead of honoring, right? Honoring is like, oh, you're here. And then at the end of the video, gosh, it's like, he's like, these parts of us, they don't even want to be healed. They don't want to be healed. They want to be held. And that happens to be the healing. And it's just so beautiful. Oh, I'll get it to you. You can put it in the show notes. It's such a lovely, it gets to that heart feeling that if we can cultivate that, and it doesn't mean that we don't have the absence of, oh my God, here she is. I'm scared of her. Get her out of here. Get her off the doorstep. Because guess what? We got to be like, oh, you're here too.
Right.
It doesn't mean kicking our inner critic or inner fear or whatever, our inner misunderstandings about what it means to be human to the curb, because that's just more self-violence. Right? This is where I like rely on Walt Whitman's very famous quote of like, you contain multitudes. Like, you've got so much space. We all do inside of us for the whole breadth of experience and feelings. And yeah.
Which is why I think it's so important that we, not only for us, but for others, that we allow people to be seen and heard exactly as they are without fixing, correcting, judging, all of that stuff, that we allow people to be where they're at and to have their experiences, even if we don't understand or see it the way that we do. And that's generally what we want as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. We're about out of time. Is there anything else before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you, my friend. Because that last bit that you just said, like, I definitely feel that way when we connect. It's like you're like, the door opens and you're like, oh, you're here. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think about every time I talk to you and I'm crying about my attachment injuries with my hands over my face going, I hate dealing with this. I hate it. Why does this keep coming up? So I think that there's some work to be done there on accepting that little sad child when she comes knocking at my door.
Yep. And accepting the one that doesn't want her here. Like, it's really interesting, right? Yeah. There's always a place to pick up the thread.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for this conversation. I appreciate you,
Jen. I appreciate you too. All right. Have a great day.
Bye, dear.
Bye. Hey again. So did you relate to any of that? It sure seems like when I talk to clients and I share some of the things that are going on, not in an inappropriate way and not to overrun their sessions, people sure seem to feel relieved that they're not the only ones. And if you're telling people and they look at you kind of like, the person didn't tell me just get out of my head and enjoy the moment, those aren't your people. They're just not your people. So if you heard anything today and you're struggling, you want to get some help and support, you can reach out to Jen at heartfulnessconsulting.com. You're welcome to reach out to me at unapologeticallysensitive.com. We would love to help you thrive, help you feel good about who you are and where you're at, help you feel seen, heard, validated, cared for. And if we need to come up with strategies to help so that you can manage better, we're both really good at that. I think that's all I have. I've been really questioning whether I should be saying superpowers in the little ending part. I think for the time being, I'm going to keep saying it. If you don't like it, don't listen. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a listener. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's your superpower, or it's not. Have a blessed day.